It might help if I turn the mic on. Hello, everybody. Good Saturday and whatever day it is with you today. Eddie, Dave, and Dave. Yes, the Daves. The Daves. I'm surrounded not only by white men, but white Daves here today. And we're good to be with you. Fresh Black Coffee. I'm black, this is fresh, and this is coffee.
There you go.
I got it. I don't know.
You sound like you've had coffee.
Yeah, I've had something, haven't I? It's supposed to be caffeine free, so I don't know. And I've got my bottle of water next to it. But anyway, it's good to be with everybody today. Man, what a week! What a couple of weeks that we've had. We're enjoying the ride with the 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and man, every day is a new day, a new ride, a new thrill. And, man, it's pretty exciting. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to give this first hour here to our, what we can call our own domestic issues, our local issues here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we're going to pretty much turn it over to our local gadfly, he is known as, our local gadfly.
I'm not really sure I appreciate it.
You don't like that? You don't like that?
No, I hit a little bit heavier than that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. He's not impressed that it doesn't hit hard enough, gadfly.
According to Randy Crable, Al Gerhardt is the gadfly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what name could we appropriately have for you, Dave? Or what would fit?
I think it would be more fun to claim the title of howitzer that's targetable 360 degrees.
That is true. You are definitely if not tripartisan. I mean, you will go after it. Everyone, any and everyone, and that's the beauty of David Arnett.
And I've been doing this for a while, but and I publish TulsaToday.com as well as on Substack, and I put up a piece that was kind of interesting on Substack comparing protest coverage. There was coverage of a protest in Oklahoma City by Visit Vantage. And the reporter there went to both sides. What a concept. In Tulsa, the Tulsa World could not even encompass that there might be contrary opinions to the protester. Right. In fact, as I was reading out, I was trying to figure out, was this the organizer of the protest? She was so proud, or they were so proud of it. I'm becoming more and more convinced that the Tulsa World is trying to destroy our community by pitting us against each other, in particular the schools, and really highlighting that we have a lot of illegal immigrants, or if you would prefer, criminal invaders as children that have been brought into the country, and we're having now to pay for their education. And our superintendent of education and instruction, Ryan Walters, doesn't seem to be helping that much. I mean, I'm kind of concerned for the safety and well-being of any Oklahoman that might stand between Ryan Walters and a television camera. They could be run over quickly, as he has to be, contriving some kind of issue. Now, granted, he's a showboater, but then we had our formerly beloved governor, Kevin Stitt, who removes 3 members of the school board.
Yeah.
Now, these were reasonable people. They were doing a good job. We had Tulsans on there and other people throughout the state.
Don Burdick, somebody I've known for decades. Eddie's known.
Yeah. And we watched those broadcasts of the meetings, and they seem to be, very much interested in advancing education.
Right.
So why did Kevin Stitt decide to rattle the cage and fire 3 people who were doing a good job. And the only thing I can think, I'm trying to figure out why. Now, is it possible Kevin Stitt wants to be president of OSU? Is that possible? That he's looking at...
Where have I heard that before? In
maybe,
fact, just about an hour ago.
Maybe arguing with Langford to see if Langford's going to OSU and Stitt's going... This is the political fluid time.
I think you just added something I hadn't thought of. Governor Stitt's looking for his golden hammock. Term limits does that.
Well, you know, he has a mortgage company that's not broke.
He had to sell it.
Did he really?
That's what I understand, is he had to divest of all of it.
Well,
I could be wrong. You know.
I don't think it was. I don't think he sold it. I mean, you can put it into trust and do a variety.
I think you're right.
For a term,
other things.
right.
You're right. I think you're right.
He does not strike me as someone that walks by a dollar bill sitting on a table without giving it a home. So, you know, but Republicans like Stitt up until this. I don't know if he's going to attack the superintendent, the elected Republican superintendent of education. Then we've got to look at what he's doing here and why. I don't know. It's befuddling.
Have you attempted to contact the governor's office to get his side of the story?
I have found him to be less than responsive.
Oh, yes. I quit trying.
Well, when he began his first campaign, he pulled some of G.T. Bynum's staff, I believe, with him. And these were people that I was not impressed with at the time, and they returned the favor. They didn't like me, and I didn't like them. Not being as vague as I should be. Yes, the crew that he pulled to run, and they were let go by Stitt relatively quickly, I think, into his first term. But we were never able to reestablish that rapport. And so I've never been really close to Stitt. I've reached out a couple of times. His office has not been responsive. You know, whatever.
Yeah, here's my thing. Matt Pinnell and I were talking last year at the County Republican Convention. I said, Matt, were you one of these guys that was part of that whole bandwagon, you know, for DeSantis? They were playing a big push. That was going to be DeSantis' big launch, you know, and Matt, no, I've always been with Trump. And I said, well, Stitt was one of those. He says, yeah. And I said, you know, what's his problem with Trump? Let me finish this part. He said, I don't know what it is. I said, you know, Stitt terms out here pretty soon. He could have some kind of a federal, you know, appointment with Trump administration. He said, I know. I said,
I'll tell you what I
no,
think.
Here's
yeah.
I said, sucks for him. And Matt said, for him, what about me? He said, if Stitt goes to Washington, who gets to be incumbent in the next governor's race? See, Pinnell's that. And so I just want to let you know there's that part, because here's my next thing. And I know you both got other things to say. I've watched every governor's second term. We've only had so many, maybe, 4 or 5 that served 2 terms in state history. Their second term stinks. You know, Fallon especially.
Oh, man.
And I would just as soon, in fact, I'm going to say it now, Governor Stitt, just go ahead and resign now. Let Matt Pinnell work with Trump to make Oklahoma a better state.
Make Oklahoma great again.
MOGA.
Yeah,
our next 2 terms are not going to be good. Our 2 years.
Let me suggest that in a fluid time where people are looking at whether they should run for governor or not, or what seat and where, and some have announced and some are considering it, and others have announced they're considering it. But as often happens, those who know aren't talking. and those who are talking don't know.
Yeah.
But I will give you an interesting story I heard. Apparently, DeSantis and Kevin Stitt, governor, were recently both at Mar-a-Lago, and they were positioned together. They were seated together. And Stitt looked over to DeSantis and said, "Do you think this is because I supported you against Trump?" And DeSantis said, "Yeah, probably so."
Yeah,
You know?
here's what I think. If you will recall, Governor Stitt was the first governor in the nation to support the Virginia governor.
Yeah,
And
Glenn Youngkin.
Right, Glenn Youngkin. And he was very proud of that.
Yeah, you and I were there in the room with him.
Right. So I think at the time when he came out to support DeSantis was riding high. It was looking good.
Yeah.
And so I think he wanted to be on the early bandwagon.
Exactly.
And he was going to ride him to Washington.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it wasn't but a few weeks later, it turned. And at that time, once you're done, it's like a tar baby. You know, you're stuck. You can't get out. And he because it would have made him look worse if all of a sudden he abandons DeSantis. But what he failed to do was, just like DeSantis never really came out in the total enthusiastic support of Trump. He basically just calmed the rhetoric down and just kind of went away.
Yeah.
And our governor never came out and said, the way you do that is to say, I truly believed in Ron DeSantis, and I believe Ron DeSantis would have made a great president for our nation. However, I am enthusiastically supporting Donald J. Trump because I believe he will also make America great again.
Yeah.
You know, something like that. To come up with something like that, that would have been a way to do both. But it's like he decided to stay back. And for whatever reason, I don't know what it is. Maybe he felt that still that I think, you know, Dave, Double D's, Daredevil. I think he's not getting good advice. I don't know who he's listening to, who's around him, speaking in his ear, but I don't think he's getting the best of advice.
But ain't any of us.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
I've tried.
Yeah.
I've been disappointed because I met with Sarah Stitt right before the runoff against, what's his name, the former mayor of Oklahoma City.
Holt.
No, the former mayor that was running for governor. They were in the runoff.
Wasn't that David Holt? Who won that?
No, I forget the guy's name. He was a TV guy. But anyway, Sarah Stitt said, there's one issue I want to work on if I should become first lady. That's mental health. What has she done in mental health? Zero. I got with Kathy Costello early on. Those two were meeting, but then they kind of told her, okay, we got to get all our appointments confirmed first before we do anything else. Meanwhile, I'm calling his office transition team. They said, this is very important to us. We will get a hold of you. Where have you heard that before, David? You know, and
don't call us, we'll call you.
I mean, liars. I'm just going to call them liars.
Well, let's go to a even more local subject and more current. We have a proposal by Lonnie Sims, who I believe was a guest with you last week.
Yeah, we talked about you.
No,
just kidding.
No.
It was good.
We were talking about Dodge, or I hope
Doge.
we were talking
Doge.
Well,
there's no D in there.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Doge, but locally it's OGIT.
Yeah, right.
Oklahoma Government Efficiency and Transparency.
Right.
And this is a proposal not to build a big department, but to have at least one person on board who would be looking at efficiencies and functionality of county government and transparency of that and communication of that to the body public. And what stunned me was the county commission meeting that I went to this week that had Stan Salee, supposedly a Republican in District 1, opposing that.
Can we do something first?
Sure.
I hate to jump to that because I want to take more time to go into that whole deal.
Okay.
And finish up, wrap up the thing about the governor and that whole deal.
Yeah.
Just wrap a bow and tie it up. So essentially, we have seen a shift from the governor, and we've got the issue with Ryan Walters and education, and I don't know what's going on with Ryan. We both like Ryan. I, of course, you remember, Dave will remember, I supported whom?
John Cox.
John Cox is who I actually thought would have been a better choice just because of his age, experience, etc. And I believe he would have been a conservative. I don't believe he would have been a liberal, even though he had been a former Democrat.
In previous races, you supported him, but this time we had them both in here.
Right.
And
I still felt he was the guy. Well, remember, in the previous race, I supported him when he was a Democrat.
Right.
See, I'm not afraid to do that.
Yeah.
I got in trouble.
He got kicked off the executive committee of the party.
Yeah, years ago, because I mentioned that I was friends with and was supporting the former insurance commissioner who was a Democrat at that time. And I thought she was a good insurance commissioner because I'm in the business, okay? So, and she was doing a good job for the state of Oklahoma. But anyway, we diverged. I don't want to get off on all that. But anyway, so Ryan, I think he's just the bull in a china shop. And I don't think he wanted to be Trump to our Department of Education, where I think in a job like that, you need more nuance. Okay. You don't have the authority that a president of the United States might have.
And I would disagree that he's a bull in a china closet. I actually think he is directed in his activity.
Really?
Yes. I think he is directed towards his own ambitions and in being a celebrity. And his employment of campaign professionals and communication people in order to get on national media, I think are less important, if they're important at all.
Oh, I agree.
Than the actual education process.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see what you're saying. So you think he has put more importance on his personal ambition than he has on the actual, and he's using these other things more as just something to keep him in front of the media.
Well, and he is deliberately engaging in an effort to be quoted and appear on national media.
Well, but let me just, for a little background, what was the issue about that brought about this standoff between Governor Stitt and State Superintendent Ryan Walters? It was Ryan Walters said, we will cooperate with ICE and immigration. If they need to come into our schools, we will. Governor Stitt said, all of the children of Oklahoma need to feel safe in their schools. So Stitt was giving the Democrat talking points on that, and that's what I found super offensive.
Right, I agree.
Super
I agree with
offensive.
that. That is true.
And what was offensive about what Ryan Walters was doing was exacerbating a fear of a activity that the federal government had never declared they were going to do. No federal agent or officer or elected official has said they're going into the schools. They're going after criminals, people that have a record, who are committing crimes in America. And those are the people that they're going to expel from the nation. Yeah. And that is fine. Now, we're a long way from getting around to elementary school kids.
Oh, I agree.
That's
I
a
think it's
big difference.
It is stupid. But remember what happened in Philadelphia after you see all these mayors saying, we're not cooperating with federal officials, it's ICE. And then they have a plane crash in Philadelphia, and the mayor says, local, county, state, and federal law enforcement are working together on this. When they want to, they'll cooperate with feds. When they don't want to.
The California fires.
Yes, they do, and then they don't. They want your money.
Right.
They want federal money, but they don't want federal accountability.
Right.
What we need to keep in mind is that government is not one thing. It is a collection of fiefdoms. And everybody has their swimming lanes that they feel like they own. And that's where, they're going to exercise power. So, to get the kids in at Tulsa Public Schools all traumatized that their Hispanic friends are going to have to return to their native countries. I blame that on media. I blame that on the Tulsa World, and I blame that on Ryan Walters.
You're right.
For exaggerating something that is not happening and may not ever happen.
Yeah, but I think I take a little bit of issue with what you just said, because I don't think the kids really care about their
There have
friends,
been walkouts.
maybe.
They're walkouts out of the public schools. They're walking out en masse.
Out of high school.
Yeah.
And I said, let them walk out. Because, first of all, like you said, it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. And you say it's a far away idea of happening. We've got a lot of other things.
You mean the feds coming into school?
Exactly. So this is something that's being drummed up by the Tulsa World and the media, and someone is putting it and getting these kids worked up to cause them to walk out. To me, the proper way to handle that is not to feel bad about the kids, to say, fine, if you want to walk out and you want to flunk, okay, I'm giving you a 0 for that day. If we have a test and you walked out, you get a 0 for the grade. If you want to go to college, you better get your grade up. That will stop the walkout, and we will worry about the other stuff. And some parents will get, as they say, get religion real fast and realize, well, wait a minute, this is a fight we may want to wait on, because, first of all, it hasn't come to us yet. And then if and when it does, then we can, and the parents can then join the kids in that fight. Then it may be a fight worth fighting. I would not risk my kids or anybody's future over a possible future occurrence. And that's all I'm saying. And that the media in the Tulsa World is one of the main ones, and our 2, 6, and 9, is it 9 here? 2, 6, 9, 8, 8 and 23 are very much a part of that.
Oh, yeah, they're all corrupt.
They're all doing that.
Now, wait a minute. I've seen some good coverage, and I've seen some mediocre and bad coverage.
Yeah.
Of course, I think I provide excellent coverage. But,
if their coverage were that good, we wouldn't need you, Dave.
Yeah, thank you very much.
To quote Rush, you are equal time.
There you go.
Well, and every writer has to have some degree of ego.
Of course.
In order to presume upon the public that whatever they are thinking is worthy of other people's time.
That's true.
But I can remember back in the dark ages when I was in school, and we would walk out for the time of day if we could get away with it. And if we could get away with it. And that's really the question here. I have to admit, my crew and I got a little creative on that back in high school at Tulsa Memorial. The big passes, now there were between class passes, but the big pass, the important one, the one that scared everybody, was the passes to the dean. So 2 friends of mine and I noticed that the dean had his passes stamped by his secretary. So we got one that was legitimate, and we had a stamp made. And then we stole a pad of passes, and then we got our little ink blotter, and we had that set up in our lockers so that we could fill out and stamp a pass anytime we wanted to go out. So I have to admit, I had a lot of donuts as a senior
There you go.
in high school. And
All right.
but
Rabbit
anyway,
trail.
let me say that. I'll throw a little story in there.
Hey, we can't hear you.
your mic.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I'll throw it over. Do you remember the second most memorable Olympics in history?
No.
1968, Mexico City.
Oh, the fist. Yes.
Okay. And so,
I thought that was a massacre in Munich.
no, that was number one. Okay. That happened, that was in 72.
Ah, okay.
So, John Carlos, what were the other two? Tommy, I can't remember the names. I remember John Carlos.
Black Power.
Yeah. But the three athletes, black sprinters, they were 1, 2, and 3, and they all did. So anyway, so what happened, or I think only two of them, but anyway, I did. So the next day, some crazy freshmen show up with their Black Power with the gloves on, you know, and they're going to make their statement, and the principal, assistant principal, they're all freaking out. So they call me and two of my friends that are seniors that were kind of seen as leaders. We were the athletes, and we were seen as. So they call us in, and I mean, seriously, it was funny. I mean, they were just really nervous.
Was this a Dodd school?
Yeah,
Okay.
Department of Defense school.
So it was over in Europe.
Yeah, and so guys, what should we do? What are we going to do? And we said, nothing. Just a bunch of idiots running around with black gloves. Ignore them, and it'll go away. Really? Yeah. Just ignore them, and it'll go away. And sure enough,
such a perfect response to so much going on nowadays.
Exactly. And here we are, 17-year-olds, being sought to speak to the principal and assistant principal of the school. They're asking us for the advice, and we told them. So they did it, and sure enough, boom, it was gone. Next day, the guys didn't get any reaction, the ones who were doing it, and it went away. And that's what I'm saying. That's what we've got to learn to do with some of these things. The grown-ups have to be grown up and just deal with it. That's what you're grown up for.
They've forgotten the old saying. If you're young and have a heart, you're a liberal. If you're mature and have a mind, you're a conservative.
Yeah. If I could jump in here.
Yeah, Dave.
We had a teacher strike back in 2018. There have been some other ones. Those are actually wildcat strikes. But the administration was politically behind the movement, so they just canceled school so that the teachers wouldn't get fired, right? The same thing's true today with these kids walking out. We got some kind of rattling going on here that's causing some kind of... Don't know what's that is. Well, anyway, we got kids walking out, and I think...
It's Dave's. I think it's Dave's mic.
Something's going on. Okay, back to the show. So these kids are actually being encouraged by the schools,
right?
By administrators, by principals, for political purposes. That's what it is.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
No, it's mean to your mind.
It's this his
cord
hitting against the table.
Yeah.
His mic stands hitting. Yeah. So what's going on there is the schools are actually egging the kids on to walk out. But I will say this: back in 2007, I think it was Randy Terrell became, or forget who became Speaker of the House. Republicans took over, and they passed this crackdown on illegal immigration thing. And Tulsa World reported stats supposedly coming from the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce as when the bill got signed into law, 50,000 Hispanics left Oklahoma. When it went into effect in the fall, another 50,000 left. There's a dynamic of self-deportation. people that want to leave on their terms rather than having the 6 a.m. knock on the door.
Well, that's perfectly shown to be true.
Yeah.
In Biden's campaign to win office, he talked about opening the southern border, and they started moving. Now, of course, George Soros and his Open Borders Society, George is most famously known in my mind for being the one who said the only problem with American elections is only Americans can vote.
Yeah.
So he wanted to import a new voting body so that we could become a socialist country and he could destroy the economy like he's done in other countries around the world. But when Trump took office and talked about and started talking about sealing the border, that the gotaways are dropping tremendously. The number of people are dropping tremendously. And so, in fact, the border crisis is, I would say, 75% public relations and public perception.
Yeah.
More in that effort. But we also have local Democrats who, the Democratic Party is as divided as the Republican Party.
Yep.
So they have their LGBT folk, they have their open border folk, they have their, traditional liberal.
Yeah, the union part.
Yeah, and
they're
the
not
union
as big.
part and other kinds of things. But you have full-blown communist in Tulsa, and people don't really understand that. And they are using the foolishness of youth to drive our young people, I believe, a little bit crazier than they would normally. And they're taking advantage of this. And, of course, the education establishment hates Walters because he actually believes in God and country. And those things are not what government schools want to teach their indoctrinated young people. And that's a shame. But I don't know. Can we move on to OGAD? I love OGAD.
No, I just wanted to finish that up on the state.
I know you have a lot of history, but and so do I. But we can talk about history until it.
No. I just wanted to seal that up about what's going on with the state. But then, let's just move on with the
county government.
Tulsa County.
You're talking about Solie.
I don't understand why
Commissioner
the commission would even hesitate, because they have money available to hire someone who would look at efficiencies, and hopefully this is something that the commission will be able to get done soon. The point is that, and some conservatives still hold this against me. But I spent 7.5 years as the public information officer for the Vision 2025 project.
Yeah, I hold it against you.
I know you do. And that's all right. I appreciate your desire to learn and failure to remember.
It's getting deep.
But, we had a citizens oversight committee. We had monthly reports and meetings, and we produced an annual newsletter. We had 32 different projects, millions of dollars, and we kept track of them down to the penny. And I was doing those newsletters, and one time we finally decided to round by standard accounting practices to the highest dollar so that we wouldn't have to put the cents on there. And that almost triggered an audit. That's how carefully the program was reviewed. Now, it's completed. It's done. It was the 2025 project. By the way, this is 2025. It was long done. So it's all finished.
Yeah.
There was no malfeasance. There was no corruption. And it was so successful that the city of Tulsa has stolen the Vision name and put it on everything, including the trash cans that they now consider to be capital expenses. But this is, you have to occasionally, like Elon Musk and Donald Trump are doing, you have to defend public information, which I think is very, very bizarre. Sometimes the people who demand transparency are the people who object to the process by which things become transparent.
Well, it's how it's presented and who's presenting it, and the people. Sometimes a friend of mine used to call them sheeple, and they do are I do not believe we could have another revolution like we had in 1776 because people today are so indoctrinated and so willing to follow. It's like what happened in Nazi Germany. The German people were just lulled into this by a socialist government. It's funny that Democrats always want to associate Nazi with Republicans, but they forget that it's the Nazi stands for National Socialist Party. That's what Nazi means.
They are the fascist, socialist, communists they warn us about.
Right.
But the interesting thing, speaking of all of that, and directly to your point, J.D. Vance spoke to the Munich Security Conference.
Right.
And if you have not read that, it's on. I posted the text of it on
I have quotes here. He said
it's absolutely stunning.
It's amazing.
No kidding, and it went over like a brick.
Oh, I was watching.
Yeah.
Okay. And first I was watching. It was on Fox, and then by some fluke of mis-editorial judgment, Fox and Friends had to interrupt J.D. Vance's speech in order to carry a segment on pickleball. Fortunately, it was on C-SPAN.
Well, Rupert has his priorities.
No, I think it was just
Rupert
stupid.
Yeah.
I think it was just stupid. But anyway, I switched over to C-SPAN and saw more of it. But one or the other, both of them showed shots of the audience.
Oh, yeah.
And there were guys that were pouting.
Oh, yeah.
They were
ticked. Oh, they were ticked.
And in both transmissions or broadcasts of it, I did not hear more than a handful of applause.
Right.
And one time, only one person applauded.
Yep.
And yet, what was he talking about? Representing your people. Following democracy. Allowing free speech. Following elections, which they're not doing in Romania, as a matter of fact,
right.
where they literally said the vote of the people, we don't like that, so we're going to
do it again.
We're going to do it again. How oh, wait a minute. Biden tried to put his opponent in jail.
Yeah.
Now, we've got to stop that as a nation. We've got to stop that as a state. We've got to stop that as a community.
We got to stop funding it worldwide through USAID.
But the liberals don't have the brains, or the courage to meet on the open field of debate.
Yeah.
They don't want to do it.
Yeah.
They don't have a policy that works. They don't have credibility for lying to Americans for the last couple of decades. And they don't have a leader at all that is inspiring or motivating or they don't have anything.
Right.
Hey, let's before we let's get to the OGET, Office of Government Efficiency, Tulsa. Okay, it's what they call it.
It said something about Stan Salee opposing it, right?
Right, but
did I get that right?
Right,
now,
but let's just get to basically explain what it's a mini Doge basically for Tulsa County.
Yes.
That he's proposing,
and
what is it? What is it proposed to do?
It is both internal and external to look at the functionality of how county government is operating, how it is interacting with the public, to be able to communicate what county government is doing effectively, and to welcome those public comments that might identify areas that they could do better at. And this is really the mission. that I see. And I can't understand why anybody would oppose that. To me, it seems absolutely, if you've got a budget position that can be tasked to do that, why would you not?
Yeah. And right now, we've got one counselor.
Commissioner.
I'm sorry, commissioner, thank you, opposed to it.
Well, and at the meeting this week, and it was Thursday, Stan Solis suggested that, well, maybe we need to talk to the Cindy Byrd, and Cindy has already announced that she's running for lieutenant governor. I know she's very busy. She is the state auditor and inspector, but this is not an auditing function, and she would not be needed, really, to talk to anybody. And here's the point in that. There are only 3 county commissioners. County is divided into 3 districts, and any 2 of them can order an audit on any county function that is occurring anywhere.
Right.
So they don't really need that. But what they need to do is to be able to have someone that can be tasked to interview, to research, and there's also an element here of keeping county officials aware of state and federal programs that may provide grants or are passing regulations or laws that might impact the operations of county. There's a lot going on, and having somebody follow that, I think, would be an excellent idea.
Now, isn't there also a board? There's a board that I believe
they call that the budget board.
The budget board.
Now, the budget board includes more than just the county commission,
right? And they're all in support of it, as far as I understand.
I don't know.
That's the last I heard.
They the county clerk is on there, the county treasurer is on there,
sheriff,
the court clerk, the sheriff, that make up the body of elected officials.
I think there's
that
eight
county
members.
business.
Right.
And it really hasn't, to my knowledge, it hasn't gone before them yet. There may be some conversations about that going forward. We don't know, but it would seem as though, and I hope it will be, I hope Stan Solis will see the opportunities here to do good for the people of his district. And that is really the purpose. Like I mentioned in Vision 2025, there can be fears and worries and conspiracies that can be crafted about what everybody is doing. And the only thing, and in fact, Donald Trump and I think it was Elon Musk, when he and Trump were talking to the press the other day. Transparency builds credibility.
Yes.
It takes time. You have to be transparent on pretty much everything to have the credibility to do the important things that cannot be done without the full support of the public and your fellow elected officials.
Yeah, when Lonnie Sims, who presented this idea, sat in your chair last week and told us he was kind of patterning it.
It has my name on it. I don't know why you let him do that.
Yeah. So he patterned this idea, OGET, off of a program they started in 2018 in the legislature called LOFT.
Yes, the Legislative Office of
Physical
Transparency.
Yeah. So and that actually replaced and incorporated some of the functions. I think it was called APAC or something like that, which was a performance audit rotation. Bob Sullivan, local oil guy here, was chairman of it, and I've known Bob for a long time. And it was more about, is this mission creep? What is your agency doing now? What was it originally supposed to be doing? And who authorized all these other things that you guys...
Thursday...
Cindy Byrd won't get into those things.
No.
The traditional author.
No.
It's a performance audit.
Now, one of the original... one of the guys who was first leading the LOFT effort, and I don't have notes that I took at that meeting available to me now, but he spoke at this county commission meeting.
Jackson, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
And talked about it was a process. They got better at that as they went along. Now, he had a staff of about 9 people, but the effort in Tulsa County would be much more limited.
Sure.
By the same token, there are communications people, there are programmers, there are graphic designers within the county organization that could be tasked or temporarily assigned to help execute projects like this. So I think it could be done without a major staff increase, but it does take someone to lead that effort. That is not, I mean, our county commissioners and most of our elected people are busy every day with all kinds of meetings and things that they go to.
Yeah.
And they're making decisions based on the information staff gives them. And this would provide another staff person that would be able to work for all 3 commissioners and actually the whole of the board to really ferret out information, to present that information to them so the decision makers could then decide what to do and how to move forward.
Yeah, Joe Krylashek, who's our emergency management director, it's a city-county deal. I think there's only 3 people in that department, you know, and he's got to be ready 24/7. You know, for whatever come what may. So, yeah, I think we can run it mean and lean. You know, so I want to talk. You talked with Monroe Nichols. Tell us about that.
I had a wonderful time sitting down with our mayor, Monroe Nichols. We made lots of jokes. We did some serious questions.
Yeah.
And fairly soon, we're going to talk about the first issue, I think, of the several topics we talked about. One was housing, and we disagree. He believes housing is a core government service.
Oh, God. Yeah, that ain't going to fly.
I don't.
Yeah. Right.
So we talked about that a little bit. I did suggest that if housing is a core government service, then I want a key to all the mansions in town because I want to go live there. Their houses are obviously bigger than mine, and if there are no property rights, just like there are no, or the Democrats don't want any borders. And yet they live in gated communities. I love that part.
Yeah.
But if there are no property rights or no private property, I guess we can all be good commies and, accept the government apartment that they give us.
Yeah, it's going to be Dr. Zhivago's scene. Remember, his mansion got turned into public housing.
Every public housing facility that I have ever seen over time becomes a slum.
Yeah.
So where are they going to put these suckers? And if you want to see a neighborhood that once had unlimited potential and now has unlimited crime, although they have done some improvements of it, it's 61st and Peoria.
That's my neighborhood.
Exactly.
Tell me about it.
I mean, it's right there by the river. It's got good commercial, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, there were great restaurants in the area.
But they saturated it with low-income housing.
Projects.
And it became a slum.
Government destroyed the neighborhood by their policies. That's the one thing that Monroe has a point. The city plays a role in zoning, housing, and that. And it's to prevent that.
But, the problem with housing, or let me rephrase, the problem with homelessness is not housing. It is mental health, or the lack thereof, and it's drug abuse.
Yeah.
The people on the street want to be on the street. In fact, there are so many benefits to Tulsans that are suffering that Tulsa is identified in the national migration of homeless as a great place to,
Migrate to.
stop and get your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and housing
And a
in
fluorescent
the evening.
vest to go stand in the street corner.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there was. I lived downtown for a while, and it was wonderful fun. I had about 2,000 square feet downtown, an office and living space behind it, and I kept seeing this large-bodied blonde that was begging for money in the streets. And the first time I saw her, I gave her $5, and then I kept seeing her. I'd walk everywhere downtown, so we saw each other so often it got to be we'd just wave and walk on, that kind of thing. But I finally saw her and her boyfriend down at what was then Veterans Park, and they were cooking steaks. And I got to talking with them when she wasn't working and hustling. She made $36,000 a year hustling on the streets of downtown Tulsa, and she was happy. She was living in a government-subsidized apartment close nearby, and they were just, living the good life.
Sure.
And partied anytime they want, and then she got up and, hustled on the streets of Tulsa.
Yeah, so housing was a big part of your discussion with Monroe.
Yes.
What else?
All kinds of things that I invite you to subscribe
There
to.
you go. Tulsa Today.
Tulsa Today, free. You can't subscribe there. But at arnett.substack.com, which is the Substack site is called Straight Up, because that's kind of my attitude in writing, and one of my favorite oil field terms. If everything's working right, it's straight up.
Yep.
But anyway, that's where I write. You can subscribe for free there and get the latest by email. And we write about, or I write about politics and justice and the lack of it in Oklahoma, and other kinds of feature stories.
Tell us about Monroe as personality.
Yeah,
You describe him.
I really, really like him.
He's a likable guy. His people skills are good, aren't
Do
they?
you think that he will take us in the right direction?
No.
Okay, there we go. That's what I want to get to.
Do I agree with him? No, I don't think I
thoughts
agree
of-
with him on anything.
I think all of us have the same opinion. Everybody I know, we like him. He's the nicest guy. I think he's sincere in his beliefs. His beliefs are just off. That's what I feel. I don't think he's trying to deceive anyone. I think he's just surrounded by the wrong people. He's been impressed or influenced by the wrong people, and maybe driven by the wrong people. Maybe he owes things to the wrong people. I don't know. I think if you took him and removed him and put the right influence around him, he could probably do great things. But the way it is right now, it's just...
Well, and the other thing, he's very good one-on-one. He's very good with people. By the same token, those in the state legislature say that nobody wanted to serve on committee with him because he'd never show up. He was too busy or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's great to get elected, but you actually sometimes have to do the work.
Right.
Yeah, what a concept.
Yeah.
Now, I do, when we were talking, I did ask him if Kathy Taylor was going to get her old office back in what I call the board
He
queue
got his
that we
start.
have. So, no.
Didn't he get a start in government service?
Kathy Taylor was very, very influential in his campaign.
But
And-
didn't he work
Yes,
in her
he did.
administration?
Yes, he did. And all of her old hacks, like Anna America, is still, it's still carrying power. The problem is Tulsa, with his election, has gone fully opposite of how the country and our state has gone.
Yeah.
They have gone into this identity politics over principle and purpose. Good luck with that. I live here. I'm going to love them through it. I mean, I survived, G.T. Bynum's stupidity.
The tragic situation to add to it is that he has now a city council that won't do a thing to stand in his way.
Well, I have hope for 5 of them. 4 of them, I think, are batshit crazy.
Well, I honestly, I don't have a lot of faith in the other 4 that you have faith in.
I don't see a strong voice in opposition. No. You've got hope for 5 of them.
Well, the problem is, we don't even have a call-in talk show in Tulsa. The only real discussion that we have is Fresh Black Coffee, done by a couple of outstanding human beings, Eddie Huff and David Van Risingham, with occasional guest stars that make their work even better.
There you go.
But, KRMG used to be a local station. They are not.
Yeah. You used to be on KRMG.
AM 740 and FM 102.3.
There you go.
I did.
Yep.
And I did that for about a year. But their staff, while they may have conservative national talk hosts, their staff are raving liberals.
Yeah.
And they have been that for a long time without going into detail, because these are people I love and care for. But the last time I checked in with what I thought was a friend of mine at the station, he pretty much told me that he didn't like my politics, and that was about it.
Oh,
but that's not as bad as some of my relatives. So,
well, there's somebody that many of us Republicans in Tulsa County really have a lot of questions about. I understand you got an article coming up this week. Do you want to talk about it? Okay, you don't want to.
I'm struggling with
Tease it.
Okay, the Oklahoma GOP and the Tulsa County GOP are resetting themselves. Mm-hmm. Now, for those of us who went to precinct meetings, one of my favorite phrases in dealing with party politics in my own party is that we, the willing, led by the unknowing, are doing the impossible for the ungrateful. We have done so much for so long with so little, we are now perfectly qualified to do anything with nothing. The Republicans that are willing, and that's a very small percentage of the voters registered in Tulsa County, who are willing to sit and argue over policy issues and, procedures and other kinds of things, will be going to convention on,
March 1st.
March 1st.
Yeah.
And they will decide who is going to lead their party. Typically, it's going to be a real challenge this year. I know 2 of the people running. I know another person who is thinking about running for chair. I have stories. I have an interview with one of the persons that is declared running for chair, and I am not a fan. Used to be a fan.
Yeah.
Used to work with them a lot, and am not a fan now.
Yeah.
But they were gracious enough to commit to an interview, and I appreciate that, and
That's good.
I will, faithfully, report their comments. But also provide some perspective, because here, I think, is what is the problem. Our Republicans have adopted the fluidity of language that Democrats have long been known for.
Yeah.
Now, Democrats can redefine or rename an issue quicker than you can blink. Some who are running for office are redefining their history in terms that are, at best, disingenuous. Now, you know, only those people that went to their precinct meetings get a vote at the county convention. They're the only ones that get in. Now, I hope everyone did that. I know there were more people turn out at the precinct. And I also know some current leadership would love to reduce the number attending convention because a smaller number is easier to control. I know there is some back and forth whether the party should be involved in primaries. They're not supposed to be, although they have some leeway on so-called nonpartisan races. But the joke of nonpartisan races in Tulsa's government has brought us to pure disaster.
It is.
Because what happens is if you don't have a differentiation, it takes a lot of money to run for mayor.
Yeah.
And if you don't have party backing or unity around one candidate or the other, then it's just a contest between insiders.
Sure.
Or people that have been bought and sold by insiders. You know, there is a joke going on around City Hall that there are only two kinds of Tulsans, those who know and those who don't know. They work for George Kaiser.
Oh, boom.
Next week we have one of the people running for
declared candidate.
Right, for county.
Who is that?
Melissa
Myers.
Melissa
Myers.
Melissa, I have talked to and looked at her resume. She has potential. She has eagerness, and she has youth,
right,
and energy, and some experience in building a private business. But she's been in politics for how long?
About a year. Now she has been on different committees and groups, you know, with the Tulsa women's Republican groups and things like in local county issues. But she has the right. I think she has the right ideas. I'm trying to get on her to calm her down. You know, the exuberance.
Seasoning.
It's a little bit.
Well,
you know, the bull in a china shop again. We're talking about.
Keep in mind that when I first started going to GOP conventions, we had thousands of people show up.
Right.
Last time we had like 250. That's not many that are making the decisions for supposedly for the name. And what we're actually giving them is the Republican brand and hoping they don't drive it into the dirt, which I think they have done. But if I could finish this, with all due respect, what happens is those who have not been involved in politics, especially at the party level, if they haven't ever been doing it before, then obviously they're the most righteous because they just got there. And anybody who's been there, who's been involved, well, they must be corrupt and compromised. Now, think about that for a minute. God love newcomers for their enthusiasm. But we as a society don't do very well in marrying youth and enthusiasm and drive with wisdom that comes through experience.
Brent Van Orman is a great example.
Yes.
Perfect example,
Yes. So, you know, I am a willing member of the Tulsa County GOP. I am a vice chairman of my precinct. That is the lowest, least influential position I could get on that would still enable participation in the county committee, which is supposed to be the ruling body for the county party.
Thank you for saying that.
But it ends up whoever is in charge of the office or gets elected as chairman does whatever they want to do.
That's the corruption.
And, you know, here's the problem. And we have this on an issue with the state. And let me talk about the state a little bit. Nathan Dahm sent out a press release.
Since you're going to segue to state, I had a comment on the county.
Yes.
It's this. I was talking to Jerry Buchanan, who's been a county chair. I said, Jerry,
Great guy.
Yeah.
Good friend of mine.
Jerry, is it possible for a volunteer county chairman to run the Tulsa County GOP well? He said, no. It's too big. The problem we have in our state politics is we treat all counties the same. And that's why I've been pitching for the idea of don't organize by counties, organize by Senate districts. They're all the same, costs a lot less to run them, and you run them well, and you have equal representation at the state committee. But that was one point. The other thing, I think you'd agree with me. I wouldn't want the role of county chairman. It's a thankless job if you do well, and if you don't do well, it's even more punishing. But we need it.
It's an unpaid job where people are calling you almost 24 hours a day with their opinion, which they don't back up with effort or financial support, and they expect you to do all of this for them.
Yeah.
And, going back to the state, we currently have an issue where Nathan Dahm is a very conservative human being, and I think he's a wonderful person. I think. I don't know that because he only hangs out with people who are sycophants of him. He does not talk to people who may disagree with him. He does not really communicate well with anybody. And since he has taken over as chairman of the state party, he has refused to follow the rules of the state party. He has acted as a totalitarian. And looking at his background, he was in foreign missionary work, moved back to Oklahoma, immediately ran for state office, and, he's been playing politics ever since.
He's a career politician.
He's a career politician, and he does not have administrative experience. And I have written this, so it's going to be no surprise if he listens to the show. You cannot run a voluntary organization from an authoritarian management style. It's more like herding cats in a room full of rocking chairs. You've got to understand your volunteers give time and effort. Sometimes they also give money. But there's no money within the party unless the leadership raises that money for the party to do something. And there was, under David McLean's leadership, also out of Tulsa County in the Wausau area, David McLean was the state chairman, and apparently, according to Nathan Dahm, that was in 2019, 2020, the finance guy, the treasurer for the state party, had a heart attack and died. And then nobody had a copy of the records.
Mike McCutcheon.
So the reports were not filed to the FEC, and we're going to have to pay a fine for that failure. So the point is, you got to be transparent. The rules of the party say that the state Republican committee is the ruling body.
Supreme
authority. And that they have, by rule, a finance committee to which the administration of the party must report. And that has not been done.
No.
I believe Nathan Dahm has controlled information and refused to allow meetings.
Right.
And it has been nothing but drama and horse hockey since he was elected.
We got a problem. The way I see it is, it doesn't attract, whether it's county chair or state chair, it doesn't attract the kind of person that I think would have, by nature, the skill set and temperament to do it well. People use it for personal advancement.
Well, it's really funny in Tulsa in particular. It seems like, and a good example is Bob Jack, who was chairman for a while and who I tried to support early in his term. But the people who run for public office and fail miserably then think somehow they should become political leaders and run for leadership in the party.
Right.
So you couldn't win a public vote, but you then go to the party vote as if you know something.
Right.
Well, if you knew something, you would have won your public office. And that happens a lot. So that's just absolutely bizarre.
I knew a guy who was in, Eddie knew him as well, going way back, Fred Gage, I'll call him by name. He did artist management, Christian record label. And one day we're at the office and he starts kind of humming to himself. I said, "Hey, Fred, what'd you do with that money?" He says, "What money?" I said, "The money your mother gave you for voice lessons." And he's like, "Oh, listen, you can't be an artist manager if you have a voice. Because if you had a voice, you'd be promoting yourself, right? So you can't have aspirations for political office and run the party. Or at least you have to have the discipline to set it aside." I mean, John Bennett, was one time I ran for state vice chair. It was to back up John Bennett, and I deeply regret it. Deeply regret it. You know, he wasn't the guy I thought he was.
Well, John Bennett has also learned and grown over the course of time, and it's my understanding he is going to run again for chair. And Wayne Hill is going to run with him as vice chair, and they're going to offer themselves for that service. Now, I was not impressed with John Bennett's filing for office while he was an elected party chairman. That I thought was not a good plan. You
Sure.
you can't do both.
Exactly.
But John Bennett is very skilled in communication. He's a good speaker.
That's what he's got.
Very, very good at motivating an audience. Yeah. But you've also got to have the little nerd behind the scenes that is actually doing the work. You've got to have somebody who can stay on the phone and raise money. You've got to have somebody who can organize and do the accounting of the books. You have to, I mean, if your job is to grow participation, then you've got to have people that can reach out and not, now, and here's something that sadly Rhonda Villamont Smith is mistaken on. She thinks that she can grow participation by apparently bringing in or promoting a bigger tent. No, what we really need to do rather is to focus on those people who are Republicans, not to try and bring in and convert Democrats. I mean, they're welcome to come in. We're welcome to talk to them, but we should not, for example, adopt LGBT agendas in order to get that group of people active in the party. They have a party. It's called Democrats, and they're well enshrined in the Democratic Party process. If you watched the National Democratic Party try and elect their leadership, you can tell they are definitely on the limp-wristed side of humanity.
Yep. No doubt. I see a lot more purging going on. For my clique to stay in power, we feel threatened by another clique. And to be a party leader, you got to bring everybody together.
If I may on one, and I know we're running over time here, so thank you very much, and I'll try and make it quick. Here's the point. America reset normal.
Exactly.
No, we now know that the majority, the voting majority, and the electoral college majority wants common sense, not crazy.
Yes.
Right.
Now, let's go get common sense people to work together, and let's go let the crazies go wherever the flying frick they want to go.
Basically, what I think Tulsa needs is a fresh start. I say clean everything out and get someone fresh that has never been there before.
That's not what we have with Monroe Nichols, because he is going to hire based on his activities.
No, I'm talking about the GOP.
Today.
I'm talking about now. Back to the Tulsa County GOP.
With the exception, you have to have some institutional history.
Well,
but
see, that's what you have an executive committee for.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But I'm talking about as far as fresh leadership with some fresh blood coming in. And draw fresh blood, but if you've got this group of people that are the same old, and with the same ideas, the same groups, I won't name any of these many Republican groups out there, but and that's another issue we'll talk about another time. All the factions of this group, this Republican, throw all the letters together, acronyms together, but. Bottom line, I think we just need a fresh start and people with fresh ideas, and then work with the executive committees, get solid people around them, and what's the Isaiah, come let us reason together, and let's do that. But I'm just ready for a clean slate, start all over. And rebuild, because you don't see this with the Democrat Party. You're not reading about, as you said, the Democrats do have different opinions within them and but you're not reading about it all the time. Republicans, every day you're reading about the fighting within the Republican Party. I'm not reading about the fights within the Democrat Party.
That's because they are the fascist, socialist, communists that they warn us about. They don't even have a party platform because they don't want to they don't want to be truthful about what they believe in.
Right.
Now, here's a surprise for you. You may not know. Okay. This may be breaking news. I don't know, but it appears that John Doak may run for chairman of the Tulsa County Republican Party. Oh. Now, this is a statewide former insurance commissioner, statewide elected official that actually knows how to win.
Well, yeah, but he sure is waiting a long time to announce. What are we, 2 weeks away?
Says the guy who waited last minute to run for city council.
I don't think it was last minute. They were like 2 months, 2 or 3 months.
No, for you? You decided the week of filing.
But that was still 3 months. And we're talking about 2 weeks till the vote.
I know. Well, you're right there, yeah.
And nobody knows about it. He's breaking news. This is breaking news. Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah,
breaking news.
Yeah. We don't know for sure until January 27th, which is the cutoff to inform the party that.
Well, we're in February, though.
Or February 27th. I'm sorry. Wrong month. That was quick. Anyway, thank you.
And the meeting is what, March
1st.
March 1st. So you got 4 days. Yeah. He's going to announce it 4 days later.
I'm saying that's the deadline. I don't know when he's going to announce.
The rules don't set a deadline. You can nominate on the floor at the convention.
That's
what the rules say, but we don't follow rules.
That'll be interesting. That's going to be really interesting. That'll be interesting. I wish he had called me or called us earlier.
Well, I actually talked with Charity Marcus, and did an interview with her, and she said it was like the February 27th, and it was February. I'm sorry, I misspoke on January. But, my bad.
Okay,
I do that every once in a while. I'm
All right.
sorry.
So where do we find this interview coming up with Charity?
Soon.
Okay.
if I could get off the podcast and actually go do some work.
We're going to wrap it up. And listen, David, thank you for your weekly, your weekly contribution. And it's always good. Monthly, yeah, like January and weekly. Yeah. Okay, you're next. You're next to screw.
Yeah. Well, we've been doing this like every other Saturday. So
it does seem like it's been quick, hasn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
But it's third week in December, fourth week in January, and so it's been 3 weeks since you were in. But we'll try to keep doing the third week. Those of you who are big David Arnett fans, third Saturday each month. That's what we're planning.
All right then. All right, Dave. Hey, go do what you do.
Yeah.
You bigger than giant gadfly.
Comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable.
All right then. And we will we'll talk to you next time. Let's see what we got.
Let's take a break. All right.
I'm Jeff Davis with Just a Thought. There's a pool of ignorance with lifeguards headed up by people like 86-year-old Representative Maxine Waters. Waters and her leftist friends and supporters were embarrassing when they showed up at the shuttered Department of Education, a part of government that arguably should be eliminated with control sent back to the states. Our education system is in extreme need of revamping since our kids are not getting the education we're paying for. Democrats very often say they're working for the children, when it's really anything but. The Department of Education has for decades been a tool to strong-arm local schools to do as they dictate. There are abuses coming out of the department, and DOJ is in the process of auditing them, and Democrats don't like it. Why do you think that is? I think you know. Watch who the biggest screamers are over the efforts to audit departments, and you'll know who the people are that are using government agencies to steal from the American people. Those who showed up to protest show how little they learned in school. Just a Thought. I'm Jeff Davis.
All right. We haven't listened to this in a while.
That just reminds me a lot of the Christian bands of the 80s. Actually, it's a very 80s feeling.
Yeah. The keyboard, the overriding, it was, I have to, maybe I'm biased or whatever, but I honestly have to say I believe the 80s, late 70s, early 80s up to about 85, 86 was probably the best era of music in the history of music. If you think about even all of the artists that are still around today, I'd say even into the late 80s. Yeah, I'd probably say because even if I was listening to U2 when I was coming into the studio today, but, all of those came out of,
you know what it is?
Michael Jackson.
It's the baby boomer generation. It really is.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it was when they came of age in the 60s, all of a sudden, they didn't just start writing. It's a whole new genre called rock and roll.
Right. But see what happened, what added to you when that came along with the new technology.
Yes.
In the studio technology and everything, and the big mixers and everything, it just, because think about it. Think about the late 70s, early 80s, all of the groups you had: Madonna, Michael Jackson, Prince, Rolling Stones, the Beatles. Oh, well, not the Beatles maybe, but different ones of the Beatles were still around.
McCartney was doing great stuff with Wings. Right.
He was doing, and even George Harrison, I think, was there for a while. Then the new artists, and then of course, the British music was king there for the big part of the 80s. Tears for Fears. Remember Tears for Fears? I mean, they were just killing the charts.
We're not talking Boy George, though, are we?
No.
Actually, he had a couple of good hits.
Yeah, he had a couple of hits out there.
And Cyndi Lauper.
Madonna. Yeah. Madonna, Cyndi Lauper. Mm-hmm. I was living in Amsterdam in the early part of the 81 to 85.
Yeah.
And there they don't have shopping malls.
Yeah.
They have shopping streets.
Yep.
And what they do, they've converted streets. Mm-hmm. You can't drive on them, but it's like, would be like if you took say Lewis, and you made Lewis a shopping street.
Yep.
Or one of the next Riverside, not Riverside, but
Yeah.
what is Delaware? Let's say
There's
Delaware.
a pedestrian mall.
Right.
That's what we call them in America, pedestrian malls.
Right.
Yeah.
So the whole street and all on both sides, nothing but shops, clothing, record stores, shoe stores, you name it. And if you want to buy something, and I used to say, don't these people work? I mean, any day of the week, Monday through Saturday. Now, they would close Saturday at noon. They had, by law, everything shut down.
Wow.
Yeah, they closed everything until Monday morning. So if you wanted to eat, buy food, anything, you had to buy it by noon on Saturday when we came over there.
Yeah.
So anyway, but the shopping streets, you would, but a lot of the music store, the clothing stores, and then you had record shops, but they'd have speakers out front, and they'd be blasting this music. And a lot of the music that we heard here came out in Europe a year earlier.
Yeah.
In fact, I had this bet with Pat Campbell one time. Mm-hmm. Oh, is it making noise again?
No, it's just this was rubbing.
And you're hearing it? Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. So anyway, Pat Campbell and I had this argument and a bet going about George Michael.
Yeah.
The song, what is it? Should have known better than to cheat a friend.
Yeah.
Careless Whisper.
Yep. That's with Wham.
Wham, right.
Yep.
Back to Wham days. And the first song was Wake Me Up Before You Go,
yeah.
And then Careless Whisper. But anyway, so he was saying, that came out in such and such and such. And it actually came out in such, it was a year earlier. Because I remember I lived there when it came out.
Yeah.
In Europe. And I had the album. And then sure enough, I won that bet. After a while, he quit because, the song. In fact, I'm going to play it one day. In fact, I had people, if you could name this tune, you win a prize.
There you go.
And I play it, and everybody made a guess. Nope, that's not. Yeah, that is it. Nope, that's not it. Nope. And the song everybody thought it was with Caribbean Queen. Remember that?
Nope.
Caribbean Queen. Da, 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 da.
And who did that?
Right. I'm trying to think of his name now. I can't think of his name. Anyway, but the original song was European Queen.
Oh.
Yeah. And then when they sent it to the U.S., because it was like the number one song all over Europe for like a year and a half. And then they said, so good, let's send it over here. Yeah. But over here, they made it Caribbean Queen. And so I'd have all these people guessing, and people were getting mad at me because it's Caribbean Queen, Caribbean. Nope, yeah, I've got it right. And then I said, nope, here it is, and I played the whole thing where it said European Queen, and people were just ticked off because wait a minute, how did you do that?
Yeah, I just want to say though, it isn't the baby boomers as performers. It's as composers and arrangers. That's what it's the actual music itself and how it's produced. I mean, the classic rock of the 70s, the arena rock of the 80s, that stuff reached the level of Philharmonic.
Well, yeah. I mean, you take Queen. Queen. Kansas, yeah.
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, Styx.
Yes.
Yeah, Styx. In fact, when we went over to become missionaries, and they give you these jobs to do. We went through a discipleship training school, and so you would have class in the morning, and then in the afternoon, you had a job.
Right.
And my job with another kid from California was dishwashing. We had to wash dishes for the community. Okay.
Yep.
So. And we had it down to a science. And we lived at a different place from the main deal. Okay. And so we worked it out. I mean, we were really good. We were fast. And so this kid, California guy, he has this boombox. Boomboxes were big. He had so we would take that sucker, we would crank it, and we would play Styx with Babe, I'm leaving, must be on my, that, and I can't remember the name of the album, but that and all those songs.
I'm sailing
away. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. And we would be cranking that loud, and all the Dutch people were freaking out. They would run out of the place. Nobody could stand. But we would have all the dishes washed in the hour, and we would go into town, ride bicycles in the town. We would have everybody else is still working, doing painting, yard work, and we're cruising around town, shopping. We're doing all kinds of stuff, And people were getting mad because these guys, they're not working. No, we just were smarter. We worked smarter because we had a lot. But we just had it down to a science to where we could really crank it out.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was the 80s stuff. Even there again, Styx, Foreigner.
Tommy Scholes, Boston. Boston was Tommy Scholes.
Boston, right.
I watched his
and then, even then, in all the group, one of my favorite bands of all time is a group that they were like, over here, I think you consider them a one-hit wonder, but overseas, they're called Johnny Hates Jazz. And one of my favorite songs of all time is, I still have all these albums, Johnny Hates Jazz, and so many of these great Cyndi Lauper. You could go on. Bee Gees started it all. People started hating the Bee Gees for the disco and everything, but still, I have to say, vocally, Bee Gees were phenomenal.
As songwriters, they're legendary. They go back to the early folk days, the early 60s.
Right.
I started a joke.
Right, I started a joke,
Yeah, they've just done so. And if you're a composer, you have a lifetime career in it.
Right.
If you're just a performer, they'll move on to some other pretty face and cute figure.
But even their vocals, that Saturday Night Fever album, how many songs on that thing of theirs? They ruled. They ruled the airwaves for about 3 years. It was just Bee Gees. I think that's when people got sick of them. But still, their music is to me. There's certain groups that are timeless. Beatles, for example, songs will never grow old.
Sure.
Elvis, to me, that's dated music.
He wasn't a songwriter.
Well, it has nothing to do with the writing of the song. Right. I think it's the art or the style of the music.
Yeah.
That I don't think Queen will ever be old. They'll never go out of favor.
Right.
There's certain music. U2. There's certain things that'll, and then you have others in every genre, whether it's soul, R&B, whether it's rock, whatever. It's dated. Like what is it, Cinderella or Poison, some of that.
Yeah.
That's dated, but there's others, like Foreigner. Foreigner, you can play Foreigner 80s, 90s, 2000, 2020. Yeah. You can play any decade and it'll still be good.
I agree.
So anyway, that's just.
But I have to say, we all kiss up to that's derogatory. We talk about the World War II generation. Was it Tom
the greatest
generation?
generation?
Greatest generation. When you look at innovations, inventions, creativity, it's the baby boomer generation.
Not really, though. Let me say why.
Go to the sciences.
Yep.
Computing, technology.
Right. But that all happened between 1860 and 1960.
What did?
The greatest innovation. It all happened in that 100-year time. If you look at electricity, the combustion engine.
The industrial age, yes, was a huge.
Well, yeah, but
huge
nuclear power, all of these things, flight, you name it, it all happened in that 100-year period. Even the computing started prior to 1960. It was all, and everybody else then has just built on what they did.
Yeah.
It was such discovery and innovation. Marie Curie, the things Marie Curie, as far as microbiology
Yeah.
and medicine and all of it. Dr. Jonas Salk and the polio vaccine.
Well, there are discoverers and then there are innovators, and they're both important.
Right.
You know.
Well, yeah. No. I agree with that. I'm just saying, to me, and the reason I say this, I took a 20th century world history class, and when we started studying, and I just decided to look at this, and I just noticed that from 1860 to 1960, because that's when we shot our first man up into space. Alan B. Shepard was the first man we shot into space. And everything up between there, all of the things that happened in that period of time are just phenomenal. There's no other 100-year period that he's seen that much discovery. There's been, as you said, some innovation and building upon prior stuff.
Yeah.
But we're talking about just pure splitting of the atom, electricity, the telephone, telegraph, telephone, combustion, and internal combustion engine, flight, you name it. It all happened in that 100-year period. That nothing.
Keep going.
Yeah, nothing has ever happened in any other 100-year period that happened like in that 100-year period. That's all I'm saying. And we, Dave, are so fortunate to have been born at the tail end of that 100-year period. So we have... Am I ready for my close-up, Mr. DeVille? But we were born at the tail end of the 100-year period, so we've seen that 100-year, that the discovery and the innovation building on that. In other words, like our cell phones, these computers, this soundboard we have here, are all things that have built on the discovery in Marconi and the telegraph. All of these things that we just can't believe. And I wonder, sometimes I've asked God, why do you pick one period of time to release so much? All of that. I mean, think about it, the splitting of the atom, the discovery of the microbes, being able to the telescope to see bacteria, and all of these things that people have thought about them. Is there something there but it all happened from 1860 to 1960.
Jesus went to the synagogue on the Sabbath, and he said, I'm here to proclaim liberty. Paul talked about liberty. That in Christ we're set free. We have liberty. The Dark Ages are a time we look at, from, kind of ended with the Renaissance. Or a religious person would say the Reformation. That's when our freedom was given back to us in measures. But you saw Holland become very much throwing off the bondage of, religion. Not that they didn't have faith. It was just they didn't have the dictates of Rome anymore. But that liberty will bring about these kinds of things. I mean, how much pressure did Galileo have from the Pope when Galileo says, no, the earth isn't flat, it's really round. And Columbus, following through because somebody had the concept, he said, okay, I'm going to go prove it. I just think that it's, freedom is what unlocks the opportunity.
You know what? Since you say that, I think it's appropriate to bring that to today.
Yeah.
That I think we are on the crux of seeing something here in America. Because how so much of our genius and invention was being shipped over to China. on one hand, we're allowing them to steal it.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we have so many handcuffs on everything. But I think now with Trump back in and the way between him and Elon, you've got Apple, Facebook, Google, Adobe, all of these heads, all of these people
Right.
working collectively together. And I honestly believe, and we've gotten rid of the gatekeepers in medicine, the pharmaceutical industry, what he's starting to do there. I think we are about to see, if we're allowed to, if someone or something doesn't come in and try to stop it, I think we could see in the next 4 years a whole new just emergence of a whole new era of technology.
Yeah, I watched a video of a conference that happened recently in Spain. It was the nationalist movement in Europe, not just Europe, South America and Central America. And now, they were celebrating all of these great leaders. What's his name in Holland? We've talked.
Geert Wilders.
Wilders was there.
Orban.
Yeah, Viktor Orban was one. They had a young
Argentina.
Yes. They had a young woman from Greece that brought down the house. But it is about liberty. It's about freedom of speech, freedom of thought. You see, this was the bondage. And I'm watching at home, and my wife comes up. She's like, "You're crying." I said, "Yeah, I am." I said, "We almost saw the world purge into the darkness of an oligarchy that was going to control our speech and everything. And we came close. I think it's been thrown off. I think that liberty has come. And I think Trump now getting elected is kind of solidified. And so many people are taking heart in these other countries. Yeah. And I guarantee you, I think there's a good chance Nigel Farage could become the next prime minister of England.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, when he was in town a couple of years ago, spoke to several of us, and I had a chance to visit him a little myself. And people had asked, have you ever considered running for the British Parliament? He said, "I don't run in those circles. It's very hard to get selected by the Tories. It's a kiss-up. The Tories is a party that's older than our nation, right?
Right.
And when he finally decided to do it, Nigel's went out and started his own party. He got, 4 seats in Parliament. But now all the polls are saying he's beating Labour Party, Starmer, and now it looks like the Tories want to merge in with Nigel's party. Yeah. Nigel's seen as a strong figure, a person with ideals, with courage, with guts.
Well, I think they're sick of just what America's sick of.
Yes.
That became sick of in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for, for the Germans to get on board. It's ridiculous. Every time.
Their elections are coming up soon.
Yeah, it's silly. In fact, right here, I've got this article. Germany hits back at the U.S. over Vance's tirade. J.D. Vance stunned a Munich conference with blistering attack on Europe's leaders. U.S. Vice President questioned whether Europe's values are worth defending as he rails against a threat from within. The U.S. Vice President has launched a brutal ideological assault on Europe, accusing its leaders of suppressing free speech, failing to halt illegal immigration, and running in fear from voters' true beliefs. Man, in a chastening speech Friday that openly questioned whether the current European values warranted defense by the U.S., he painted a picture of European politics infected by media censorship, canceled elections, and political correctness. The canceled elections is a situation where in Romania, they canceled the elections because they weren't happy with the outcome. So what they did, they said, no, we want a do-over because the wrong person got in. And it was a person that basically was going to be democratically elected, but he was wanting to follow the way of Hungary, Argentina, please forgive me, Venezuela, the U.S., and other countries that are starting to break free from this groupthink. Yeah. And the Germans are ahead of it, arguing that the true threat to Europe stemmed not from external actors such as Russia or China, but Europe's own internal retreat from some of its most fundamental values. Vance repeatedly questioned whether the U.S. and Europe any longer had a shared agenda. What I worry about, he said, is the threat from within. Vance said, now this is very, very important here. Get this. Yep. If you're afraid of the voices, the opinions, and the conscience that guide your very own people, if you're running in fear of your own voters, there's nothing America can do for you, nor for that matter is there anything you can do for the American people. Man, you watched the speech. It's online. You can see it. Just look, J.D. Vance's speech, or Vice President Vance's speech to the Munich conference. It's awesome. You have to watch it. The guy, I don't know how Donald Trump knew. Again, I think so much of this is sovereignly directed that God chose J.D. Vance and Trump to pick him. Because when he gives this speech, it's one of the great speeches to me. One of the greatest speeches I've ever heard a vice president give.
Nobody wanted to applaud for either.
Right. There are three people. They say three people applauded in the whole speech. Because the Germans in particular were ticked off. They were just angry. And, of course, it says that Germany is really mad about that. The Germans. And they're just – I'm half German. I was a German. I became an American citizen. But I have to say it. I'm so disappointed and ticked off at my former country. Mm-hmm. You guys are a joke. You guys are a joke. And the problem is you don't want to be – and also ran. You want to rule the world. That's what it is. The Germans, There's a thing called German Stolz. Stolz means pride.
Yep.
They have this pride thing that still goes all the way back to Adolf, and they are mad that they have a back seat in world politics.
Yep.
They want to rule the world. They want to be somebody. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, they're not, and they won't be as long as they continue to play this socialist game. So what's the old saying? Get right or get left. Yep. And by getting left, you're going to get left behind, because the nations that see it, I believe, are going to prosper. You're going to see more and more rise up. You've got Greece, as Dave said, the new chancellor or president of Greece. I thought the Italian president was going to step up, but I don't know. She's wavering a little bit. She's kind of letting us down. But South America, those countries are starting to wake up, some of them. So there's a new group arising, a group of nations that are combating the slide to socialism that has overtaken us for the last 20 years, 30 years.
One of the most incredible men, I listened to Tucker Carlson talk to him last night, a podcast, is Viktor Orban.
Yeah, Orban's really good.
He stood alone for many years when Europe was getting sucked in to this very demonic whole thought police. It just... they wanted to take away everybody's identity. You couldn't think for yourself. You certainly can't speak for yourself. And we're going to homogenize the nations with open borders. Mm-hmm. It was all designed. I think the WEF was at the heart of it, the World Economic Forum. It's a terrible thing that's going on. Viktor Orban has said, the left is going to have to come up with some new conspiracy theories because all the old ones have proven true. He has great hopes. He says, remember, Hungary was a Soviet bloc country. He says, I grew up as part of the Warsaw Pact. He says, I understand the mindset of someone like Vladimir Putin. And so he has great hope that war can come to an end.
Yeah. See, I don't see Vladimir Putin, just as J.D. Vance said, I do not see Vladimir Putin as the real enemy. It's just as he said, the real enemy is the enemy within, in Europe and within the United States, that is trying to weaken us, and they're pushing us against Russia and China to an extent, but particularly against Russia when they're using them as a straw man. They said, look over here, look over here.
Right.
When within, they're trying to destroy our country from within.
Yeah, and the globalists have exploited NATO membership. That's the big sin that Putin looks to as why he can't trust Europe. Right. Is because, am I on? Yeah, I think I am. Okay. He said, look, when the Soviet countries fell, it was understood by everybody that NATO was going to stay Western Europe and Central Europe was going to stay in Eastern Europe. Very neutral, not part of either. And he said, what was the final death coffin was when the talk started to come about Ukraine joining NATO. He said, that was the most dangerous thing because Russia is one of the hardest nations to defend and keep whole. And they can't have the open plains of Ukraine as a secure border.
Right.
So,
well, it'd be like us if Mexico, all of a sudden, we're ceded to China. We can't have it. You see how Donald Trump, in the news lately, is basically has served notice to Panama. You will not give that canal to the Chinese because it is a security issue. Yeah. Our ships, if our ships can't get through that canal, it would have to go all around the Cape of Good Hope, not the Cape of Good Hope. It's the Cape of.
Well, it's the bottom of it. You're almost at Antarctica.
Yeah.
Bottom of South America.
Yeah.
I forget.
Whatever that cape is down there. That Magellan.
It's the worst seas to navigate.
Yeah.
How Magellan ever survived it, I don't know.
Yeah, in a wooden ship.
Yeah.
But anyway, when men were men.
Yeah.
But anyway, and what was the old saying? When men were men and women were glad of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, but we have to secure the Panama Canal. It's strategic. And so Russia is saying you cannot have Ukraine, and a part of it in the Donbass in particular, because it's got the Black Sea. So if we gave, or if anyone gives the Black Sea to NATO, that means all of a sudden we've got submarines, aircraft carriers, and naval bases all along there, right across. It's like the missile crisis in Cuba. And so many Americans don't understand the strategicness, if that's a word, the strategic importance of that to Russia.
Yeah, do you remember what we had to do to end the missile crisis? We had to pull our missiles out of Turkey because we were doing exactly to them what they were doing to us in Cuba.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not a fan of either one, Russia or Ukraine. People may think I'm a Russian sympathizer. No, but honestly, up until this crisis, the Ukrainian situation, I didn't see a problem with Russia. We didn't have a problem. All of a sudden, we made Russia the boogeyman and an enemy that we didn't need to make. It's almost the same enemy we made of Vietnam. You remember Vietnam was a French territory, right? Mm-hmm. And the French got out and said, you can have it, and we took it over. Then all of a sudden, we had to make the North an enemy, and we saw how that came.
We will find out more as we learn more about the operations, the USAID.
Yeah.
Because what did we think we knew about Iraq and what ended up being true about Iraq?
Yeah.
And I'm not just going after GW on this. I'm going after Obama because he, with Hillary Clinton as his Secretary of State, picked off one Arab Spring nation after another, and mostly failures. No nation was made better by that. Nope. And we're still seeing the fallout in Syria. Yeah. But here's the thing: they were pitching a narrative to us, in the media sucked it all up about, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Well, it ended up not being true. So sometimes the warmongers convince us of things by psyops. And that's what the USAID was very much involved in. So what I'm getting at here is Ukraine was pitched to us as the good guys. We actually overthrew the previous government of Ukraine in 2014. It was our CIA. We weren't told that at the time.
Right.
We were pitched a narrative of all these just wonderful patriots and, the pretty lady with the braids in her hair. And they were all corrupt. There's one thing true about Ukraine. Everybody in government, the corruption is more rampant in Ukrainian government than anywhere.
I don't know who it was. It was my son was just skiing in Switzerland. If it was him or someone who was just skiing in Switzerland, and they said they were at some resort, and it was just full of Ukrainian millionaires.
Yes,
they were just
it's what you can get out of it. I mean. The widow of the guy who started Berezna, she said, yes, my husband knew if he wanted to keep from getting thrown in prison by this other person, they were going to have to pay, it was like, I think it was like $500,000 or $1 to Biden's. And she said half went to Hunter and half was going to his dad.
Guy, yeah.
Yeah. And remember Hunter complaining to relatives that at least you only have to pay 10%. I have to give half. Yeah. And that was the deal. The Burisma thing, we've got everything we need to prosecute now. Yeah.
By the way, apparently some judge has just ruled that the pardons are all unconstitutional because you can't give pardons for something that's never been charged, which makes total sense.
Right.
You can't give an unconditional pardon for something that you can only pardon something that someone's been accused of.
Yeah.
So basically they're saying all of those pardons that he gave are no good.
Well, he gave thousands. You're talking about the ones associated with his own corruption, right?
Well, right.
His family.
His family and different ones. What's her name? Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
All of the people
right. Good point.
All the people who have never been prosecuted for anything, right? Yeah.
Viktor Orban, I mean, you got to listen on the Tucker Carlson network. He says, the United States, he says, is very important to Hungary, and he says, I'm thrilled. He says, the United States doesn't call themselves an empire, but they are. And you see it with Trump, whether it's Panama or Greenland or Gaza Strip. Trump's enlarging The
tent. Empire.
Yes.
Which is something I don't think we talked about it last week, that Trump is talking about us taking over Greenland. Mm-hmm. Not Greenland. Yeah. Iceland.
Oh, Iceland. That's a whole other deal.
Yeah. Because Iceland, see, Greenland, I can understand. But see, Iceland is... No, I'm sorry. It's the other way around. Yeah, it's Greenland. It is Greenland. I always get them mixed up. Greenland is the Iceland, and ice is the Greenland.
Yeah. Leif Erikson actually was the one who named both of them, the Viking explorer.
Right.
And he said he named Greenland such to try to encourage more Scandinavians to settle there. But Iceland is on a big volcano with hot springs everywhere.
Right.
The two ought to be flipped.
Right. Yeah, because Iceland is the beautiful one. It's the really nice one. And Greenland is the one that is just nothing but ice and yeah. But anyway, so Trump is talking about annexing Iceland. And it's the big one. It's the big...
No, Greenland.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Smack me next time. Greenland. Mm-hmm. Greenland. Anyway... But it's rich in minerals.
Yeah.
And that's why Denmark is freaking out because Trump's saying, we want it, we're going to take it. And I don't know if you've seen the stats on the mileage, but it's actually closer to the United States than it is to Denmark.
Yes.
It belongs to Denmark, but it's actually closer to the U.S. than it is to Denmark.
Yeah, and if you're going to do, Trump wants to do an Iron Dome. Mm-hmm. For the United States, missile defense. Right. Greenland is so important.
Oh, it is.
Because on one side of the pole, you've got Alaska, North Shore, and then Greenland. With those two, anything coming out of Europe or Asia, because they're going to come the shortest distance, which is basically over the North Pole, the Arctic Pack.
He could protect Europe even from there, too, because where it's located right in the middle there, anything coming over both ways.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Viktor Orban had a very, very good, concise statement.
Go watch it.
Yeah. He said, strong leaders make peace. Weak leaders make war. All these things Trump is talking about doing, that's freaking out all of his detractors and that. Never once has he talked about military force for any of it. He's appealed to the opportunities. Remember, even when he spoke to the North Korean dictator, he started out with a video of all the development that could come to North Korea. He pitched it to him of what you could be if you trusted the goodwill of others.
Yeah, have you seen what he wants to do with Gaza?
Yeah.
He wants to basically take over Gaza.
Make it Monte Carlo.
Yeah, and they've got plans drawn up and everything. Want to clear it out, and after they do, just make it this really beautiful place that for the citizen people, jobs and everything like that. And and what it's going to do, what that does when he does that, it shows that the Palestinians are really not interested in their people.
Hamas is not.
I mean, Hamas, right?
Yeah.
What did I say?
Well, Palestinians, because culturally there's a vast difference between Gaza and West Bank.
Yeah. Well, in a sense, but even West Bank, as far as I understand, the West Bankers are pretty hostile as well. Still.
They are, but they're nothing like Gaza.
Well, no, that's true. That's true.
The attacks on the Israeli homeland have not been coming from the West Bank.
No. Because they know that they're at the mercy of Israel. I mean, they would be wiped out in a heartbeat. But see, here's the thing. If we could get the Palestinian area there, Gaza, if we could get Gaza to redevelop, cleaned up, turned into something, it would be an incentive for the West Bank, all of the Arab area, to say, well, wait a minute, we want a part of this. Yeah. We would like to, maybe Lebanon all of a sudden said, wait a minute, we remember what Lebanon used to be. Lebanon used to be the pearl of the Middle East. That's where everybody went, beautiful. I mean, it has some of the nicest weather, some of the nicest beaches, some of the nicest everything. Nightclubs and the life of it was just wonderful. And then the Hamas took over there. Hezbollah. Okay, I was getting one of those H names. Hezbollah took over, and everything just went down.
And you see what happened. That was early 80s. That was within a couple years after Iran, the Shah gets toppled.
Right.
And you see that oil money, they were exporting terrorism. Lebanon, very much that way. The Gaza idea, now I looked at it, it's maybe 30 miles by roughly 10 miles. It's a lot smaller than Tulsa County. It may be smaller than Washington County, Bartlesville. What I'd love to see is if there's some way along the south edge, because it butts right up against the Egyptian Sinai Peninsula. I'd love to see a corridor going right along that border all the way to the Gulf of Aqaba. Because if you have that, just wide enough, maybe 2-3 miles wide, you got a buffer between Egypt and Israel there. And you also have a land route. If you ever have problems with the Red Sea, you could ship things right into Gulf of Aqaba and go by turnpike to Gaza. And you probably ship stuff a lot faster than going all the way around the Saudi Peninsula and up through the Red Sea. I'd love to see something like that, if it could be arranged.
Yeah, because it's interesting that the border between Egypt and Gaza is stricter than the border between Israel and Gaza.
Yeah.
And the same with the Jordanian border. They don't want those people in there.
Yeah.
Because they know they will start trouble.
They are. They're troublemakers. In fact, the Islamic Brotherhood, who assassinated Anwar Sadat, they got sick of Hamas. They won't have anything more to do with them. I was looking at it when the king of Jordan was at the White House, and he said, he says, to start out, we want to take the injured, suffering, and sick children. We'll take 2,000 of them. And I thought, okay, how do we get them over there? And I looked at it. It's about the distance from Tulsa to Oklahoma City to go from Amman, Jordan to Gaza. It's that short a distance.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking a very small piece of real estate.
Yeah.
Israel is, it's smaller than the 2nd District of Oklahoma in Congress, Yeah. So.
Hey, Doge has been in the limelight quite a bit.
Yes. Did you see the nose-picking press conference?
Yeah, the little boy, he's on Elon. This is the amazing thing to me about Trump. Elon's over here talking with a kid on his shoulders, and the kid is standing there doing all kinds of things, and Trump's just laying at his desk, just looking at. It's like he could care less what, it's like, he could just care less what the kid is doing.
That was strategic. I remember when I was helping Steve Largent organize his campaign for Congress, and Senator Rubottom was working with about 100 of us, people getting ready to knock doors. And I finally raised my hand. He was going through the whole process of knocking doors. And I said, no, what about kids? And Don Rubottom, who has like 8 kids at the time, he says, oh, yes, if you got a kid, take him with you, because you will be received much better at people's door if you got a kid with you. I said, oh, who do you want me to vote for? Okay, Billy, I'll vote for, people just do that. Elon, being a dad,
right?
He just dispelled a bunch of these demonizations of him.
And having a free range kid.
Yeah.
Free range. Because that kid is just like, he's got him in a little suit, didn't he?
Yes.
I think he had a little suit on.
Yeah, the kid's dressed better than his dad.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't even think of that.
Elon's wearing a T-shirt under his jacket.
Yeah, it's true. And the kid's got a suit on. Yeah. And Trump's just laying there on his desk like with his hand full, just looking over him like this, doing this kind of stuff. It's hilarious. It goes back to the Kennedy White House, you know, with the kids under the desk and running all around the house. And it's like, it brings a humanness again. It shows you, what the human nature is. And on the contrary end, on the other side, I don't know if you heard or seen, but the AP has been now barred from the Oval Office.
Yeah, over a small thing, but nonetheless.
Yeah, but basically they are ticked because they don't have that access. And you got Elon and his kid and everybody's getting in on this kind of stuff but AP's got to stay outside. They can still go to the regular press conferences, but the inner stuff, oh man, they must just be going nuts. It's really funny. But
yeah, and what's her name from CNN? Trump's already getting on her case for her behavior.
Oh, she's out of she's over the line. She's too, what they say, too big for her britches. Mm-hmm. I mean, she believes her press. She's the new what's his name who quit? Acosta. She's the new Jim Acosta.
Yeah,
and she's going to end up the same as Jim Acosta. I don't think she will last.
I think quicker
long.
than Acosta.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think she's going to last as long.
No, she's not.
No. Hey, nothing. Here's Wasteful and Day. Doge's top 5 most shocking revelations so far.
Yeah.
Because he's just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Iron Mountain. Have you heard of this place?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Limestone mine, right?
No. It is a limestone mine in Pennsylvania, but federal employee retirements are processed there manually.
Right.
That's what happens. Federal employee retirements are processed using paper. Using paper by hand in an old limestone mine in Pennsylvania. 700 plus mine workers operate 230 feet underground to process 10,000 applications per month, which are stored in manila envelopes and cardboard boxes. I mean, that sounds like something out of the 40s. Mm-hmm. The retirement process takes multiple months. Musk announced on X, Elon Musk said only 10,000 federal employees can retire a month because it takes so long to process the paperwork and sort through the millions of manila envelopes. He described the Iron Mountain mine as a time warp, slowing down the completely manual federal retirement process. Doge's last cuts are expected to save about $600 million in taxpayer dollars annually, and they've only just begun.
Wow.
That's just, I mean, what they've found so far, and by the time they get done, I'm going to estimate that they will be in the multiple, probably $10, $20 billion when they find it all. Because this is a small one here.
Yeah. They're just showing the dollar amounts. What we're not seeing is all the criminal referrals. They're keeping their mouth shut about that.
Oh.
So the forensic
for
audits,
the fraud, waste, and abuse?
Yeah. The fraud, the stuff. Yeah. We aren't hearing anything about that. Well, one, I think they want to wait till this week, Kash Patel's final clearance. We still have a bunch of leftovers running the FBI. Yeah,
they are scared to death. Mm-hmm. So far, he's gotten everybody through. Kash Patel is basically the last big one, and Mitch McConnell has been the one stick in the mud. What is his deal? What do you think the deal is there?
Senility and bitterness. Mm. I consider him a banny rooster. Yeah, if you grow up on a farm, when the rooster gets too old and a young cock comes in and takes over, that old banny rooster will start bossing around the piglets and every other little crawling, the horse, the cows, the dog, everything. I think once you're used to having those trappings of power and you don't have it. It's a sad
He
deal.
looks terrible. I mean, they're wheeling him around now, and
These are our last memories we're going to have of his career.
which is sad. I mean, that really is sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see here what we got in here. Oh, yeah. As Democrats lob claims that President Donald Trump and Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, are potential national security threat. They're saying that DOGE is a national security threat. Republicans are calling them out for what they perceive as hypocrisy after years of weak immigration and foreign policy. Democrats, led by Mark Warner, a Democrat from Virginia, vice chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, recently pressed the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, over their grave concern that Musk and DOGE were illegally risking exposure of classified and other sensitive information that jeopardizes national security and violates America's privacy. Well, we find out, we're not going to get into today, but basically everything that they're doing is not illegal.
What's missing is one shred of evidence.
Right.
They're just throwing at these scurrilous accusations.
Exactly. Being lectured by the Democrats on national security is pretty rich after they spent the last 4 years sending billions of taxpayer dollars to terrorists, letting suspected terrorists walk through our wide-open southern border, and disgracefully retreating from Afghanistan, empowering Iran, and kicking off the most destabilizing foreign policy paradigm in a generation, said Tim Sheehy, Republican of Montana.
Yep.
And that is exactly what's going on.
By the way, a technician was brought in to look at the architecture of these computer systems, and
That DOGE is using?
that DOGE is trying to tap into.
Okay.
And the 10 biggest inefficiencies in the government computer systems identified by DOGE workers. This is published to us from the great people at the Babylon Bee. Trump administration's DOGE has been on the warpath against federal waste and turning every seedy rock to shed light on inefficiencies. The Babylon Bee has obtained the following list of glaring inefficiencies. Number 10, all machines were running Windows 3.1. Come on, government, at least move up to Windows 95. Number 9, government internet access was provided by AOL. Yeah. Number 8, woke government programmers kept trying to make the computer language non-binary. Okay. Number 7.
That's a good one.
Every single computer in the entire IRS building was plugged into one giant power strip and wondering why the breakers kept popping. Number 6.
Dave, pull the mic a little more over.
Okay. Yes. Number 6, the Social Security numbers for every American have been stored in one giant MS Word doc to keep it secure. and it was all put in Wingdings font. Yes. Let's see. Number 5, the FBI couldn't make phone calls while the CIA was using the dial-up. Number 4, all agency computer passwords were password. Fortunately, Dodge changed the passwords to password 1. Okay. And number 3, the Internal Revenue Service chat platform was 2 cans tied together with a string. Number 2, the nuclear launch codes were stored into Texas Instruments graphing calculator. Thankfully, nobody knows how to work those things. And number 1, the FBI most wanted database was just pictures of Catholic moms in a magic 8-ball. The Bureau was only focusing on the worst threats to America.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Oh, man. That Babylon Bee. We haven't done that in a while. That's a good one.
That came out middle of the week, and I thought, I got to remember that this Saturday.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Eddie used to always start the show with Babylon Bee.
Yeah, that's a good one, Babylon Bee. You know, that is one of the best. I think they definitely, if not rival, outshine The Onion.
And you know, Elon said the last straw was when why he bought Twitter was what they did to Babylon Bee. An obvious spoof, a satire site.
Right.
That, these globalist, censors had no sense of humor. They just could not tolerate it.
Right.
And it's interesting. Another person Tucker talked to this week on his podcast was one of the princes of Saudi Arabia, who's in charge of the Kingdom Trust Fund. The investments made on behalf of the nation.
Man,
one of their biggest ones.
Trust fund.
Yeah, one of their biggest investments is they partnered with Elon to buy Twitter. And he said, people have said Twitter's now come back from, it took a hit early on when all those advertisers went in. He said, no. He says, we never devalued it. He says, now, I think it's worth twice what was paid for.
Well, I know I'm on Twitter. Are you on X?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just blowing up. I mean, and not just from conservative. I mean, the left is using it just as much as because I'm getting all of these leftist, anti-Trump people every day.
Yeah.
So
and Elon just flat out said when it comes to policies on who's allowed is it legal? Right. He's going to, whatever the statutory code is, that's what we're going to go by. And this whole thing of, we got to stop bullying. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what I'm waiting for to see happen next is for the U.S. to become very strong trade-wise and economically, build up, and see it start hitting Europe, and then Europe start making these changes.
Right.
Start bleeding over there, and all of a sudden, nation by nation, like Greece has been in financial issues for a long time, it's about 20 years or so, and going bankrupt and so forth. And
because of socialism.
Exactly. And I'm waiting to see the changes there. We've seen what's happening in Argentina. Hungary is thriving. As we see these countries and others join in, I think we're going to see. Did I say Venezuela again? I meant Argentina. If I did.
No, you said Argentina.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to see a rebound internationally, and that's going to it'll be a new dynamic. It'll be a reorganizing, and we have got to quit. See, we have allowed Biden and them to make. I'll tell you, something happened to me way back in the late 80s. Sting came out with a song. I used to just hate Russians and that whole Eastern everything. And then Sting came out with a song called Russians Love Their Children Too.
Yeah.
Do you remember that song?
I heard it talked about.
Yeah. And, man, as a Christian in particular, because all I'm thinking is about the evil, mean, and bad. They're our enemy.
Yeah.
And then I thought about it. Yeah, they're Russian, as in today, all those hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers that have been killed in this war.
Yeah, it's tragic.
As well as the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
We think about the Ukrainians, but the Russians have lost as many or more than the Ukrainians. And so I hurt for both countries. I want this thing to end. Yeah. It is not. And for the Biden administration and the World Economic Forum and the EU, those dirty, rotten scoundrels, my former countrymen, the Deutsch, the Germans, and the French, they're some of the worst. The French, and now the British are just scum.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially with labor taking over.
Right. With them just pushing them, and they're doing it for one reason. It's economic reasons.
Yeah,
they are benefiting financially from this war, and so to throw these people out there like that, enrich oligarchs and money people and power people in Ukraine so they can spend it in Switzerland and other places at the expense of all of these others, and so many of them now, hundreds of thousands have come to the United States now. They fled. Those who could got out of there and have fled. The others are just fodder.
Well, they did.
So it just ticks me. The whole thing ticks me off. So if we can, if Donald Trump can work a deal with Vladimir Putin, because I think Putin wants to end this as much as anybody.
Yeah, you remember Scott Wesley Brown wrote a song, "This Little Child." He said he wrote it after watching the 1980 presidential debates. It was just one of the greatest lyrical masterpieces. He says, "Every nation that has fallen from within." What we've seen, and we're only seeing a little bit of what's really going on in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine is morally bankrupt.
I agree.
You know, everybody gets what they can get, and then they get out when the going gets rough. All that money, all that graft is gone, right? And people are making deals. And you don't see or hear from too many former leaders of Ukraine living in retirement who aren't either dead, poisoned, or in prison because of the corruption. It is so bad. So, what's his name? Viktor Orban was talking about, just the depletion. I mean, all the refugees that went to Romania, Hungary, Czech Republic, Poland, and that. And it's just so sad to see all these things, just gone. And you wonder, what's going to happen? I mean, what kind of peace deal? Because now all of a sudden Zelensky is making all these new conditions before he'll even talk to Putin. I think Trump, and this was another thing, Tucker Carlson was saying, best understanding we have, and we're pretty confident, it was the United States and Britain that teamed up to blow up the gas pipeline.
Right.
That was servicing Germany. And he says, how come Germany didn't throw a fit over that?
Yeah.
Remember those prophetic words of Trump when he told Europe, you start buying your gas from Russia, they will own you. And I think it's a guilty conscience. That's why Germany's not saying anything. They knew that they were funding the German military. It was their gas purchase.
You mean the Russian?
The Russians, yeah. The Russians buying all that gas. When we were servicing, yes, we weren't able to do it as efficiently.
Right.
When you liquefy it and bottle it, it costs a lot more. But how much is your national security worth?
Yeah, no. If Trump needs to stick to the guns, cut the funding off, all funding to Ukraine, and okay, go for it. You see how long you can last. We're not sending you any more money.
Yeah,
and then let's see how the people react.
Yeah,
his own military will probably revolt because he won't have the money to pay the military, and then the Germans and the English they're not going to give him any money.
Yeah, you've had 3 presidents in a row with, 4, I'd say. Clinton, then GW, then Obama, and Biden. Actually, those 3, Biden just went back to those 3 globalists, and I'm calling GW a globalist. Mm-hmm. They were the expanding NATO bunch. And a lot of the commitments that early on Bill Clinton made to Yeltsin, we've reneged on them. Mm-hmm. Yeltsin actually said, we actually would like to join NATO ourselves.
Right, I remember.
And Clinton was at first favorable, and then he's like, no, you're not welcome. And, it's mystifying.
Yeah.
And we aren't even being told the whole story. That's the problem, is our own media is being bought by our deep state USAID money.
Our own, and our own globalists and oligarchs. Our industrial military complex. Yeah. Military industrial complex, because there's money in war.
Mm-hmm. You remember it was the Clintons and GW that told us about Iraq having weapons of mass destruction. It's all a lie. They've got this grand idea, and they're failing every step of the way.
Yeah.
How's Libya working out? You know? How are the Arab Spring countries, Has, peace and prosperity broken out? No. I think if what Trump can do in Gaza in 5 years demonstrate what really liberty is like, I think Saudi Arabia, the stickler for them and Jordan is going to be, are the Palestinians going to have their own homeland? Because Saudi Arabia flat out says it's got to be with Jerusalem as a capital. And
that ain't happening.
That's a tough deal unless you divide up Jerusalem.
Yeah.
I mean, you grew up in West Germany, and there was East Germany, but they weren't sharing Berlin as a capital.
No.
You had Munich as your capital.
No, Bonn.
Oh, Bonn, that's right.
Bonn was the capital.
Munich was the biggest metropolis.
Right,
though,
yeah, that's the most attractive place.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, yeah, a lot going on. Let's wrap this up with something else.
Well, we
Super Bowl.
We had a nasty blowout, didn't we? There's no other way to sugarcoat it.
I don't think anybody saw that coming. It was weird. I don't get it. It was like the Chiefs just weren't ready, and the Eagles were. Yeah. I mean, you could see it. It was like the Chiefs just didn't have the oomph for the whole game. It was lethargic to me.
It was
until
like
the last 5 minutes. All of a sudden,
well, yeah, you know how that goes. They were coasting the last 5 minutes. Right. They knew they had it. You had 2 touchdowns in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You take away those 16 points, and you got 6, 40-some to 6. Yeah. We talked about the push-tush, and Tom Brady actually broke it down and told us why. They have the biggest offensive line, the Eagles do. They average 350 pounds. Average. Mm-hmm. I mean, Steve August, who used to play lineman for Seattle, I went to church with him. He said, when I first was in the NFL, nobody was over 300 pounds. Then came Refrigerator Perry. He was the first one over 300 pounds. When I left, almost all the linemen.
Well, there was one, what was his name? Something Sherman Plunkett.
Okay.
I think Sherman Plunkett, 417 pounds for the Raiders.
For how many years?
2 or 3.
Yeah.
But he nobody could believe it. But yeah, that was in the late 60s.
Yeah. But he's a novelty at that
point.
Yeah. But now with 350 pounds, and
they're not necessarily fat.
No.
They're just big, and they're big.
They're a bulldozer.
In fact, if they get a guy who's 6'5", 6'6", he may come in weighing 190 pounds, and they will keep him on the practice squad or in college. Mm-hmm. They'll have JV teams in, but say the second, third team, but they'll feed him and build him up and weights, and they will put 50, 60 pounds on the guy.
So you know what's the big sports event this weekend? Daytona 500.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, NASCAR season
starts. I haven't been in NASCAR since Jeff Gordon left. I was really into it during the Jeff Gordon
Jeff
year.
did a lot for NASCAR.
Yeah, he did.
Now you got a bunch of Jeff Gordons. It's just a bunch of them. So I got to say, I was almost thinking, when I saw Bobby Kennedy's swearing in and stuff and some of the bunch there. I know your daughter's personal friend. She hasn't ever worked for him, though, has she?
No.
Yeah. Because I was like, now, you're going to have 2 kids at the White House this month, Because your other son, was at the White House earlier.
Right.
We talked about that. But
Did I show you the pen?
No.
Oh, that was later we found out. Yeah, we found out afterwards that he was the only one. He went to Trump.
You mentioned that last week.
Oh, I did mention that.
Yeah, and Trump was like, wow, you're the only one who's asked me.
Yeah.
And Trump gave him one of his official pens for
executive order pens.
Yeah, which is basically a Sharpie, right?
Yeah, it's a big Sharpie which says the President of the United States on it.
Yeah.
So
that's a big deal.
Crazy kids, my kids, it's weird. Like they have no fear, no shame. They're all just I guess it's, they've been so many places all over the world and done so many things. They've just learned to.
Well, when your daughter, as a teeny bopper, is not impressed with rock stars because they come a dime a dozen in her family. I mean, all the musical acts that you become friends with over the years. But I'm just, Eddie, I got to hand it to you. You got a great bunch of kids.
Well, praise the Lord. It's God. It's God and the woman he gave me to raise them, and our newest one, our little one, he's growing now. He's getting bigger and bigger. In fact, we would be taking care of him this week, but I've had a bit of a bug.
Yeah.
And I'm just getting over it, and I didn't want to get near him today, so I'm missing out on that. So she's staying at their house taking care of our little guy, Ellis. So, he's the newest one, little fat thing. But he'll lose it. All of our kids, so funny, all of them are really fat we had fat babies. And their grandkids, too. Our grandkids were all fat little babies, like little cherubs. And then when they hit about 3, 4, then they get skinny, and then they start shooting up.
It's funny. My wife nursed all our kids, and they all just get big really fast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And my daughter came up with this thing. Like, my daughter, I don't know if I ever said, she's a doula. Do you know what a doula is?
She trains new moms on things like nursing, right?
Right, and she'll actually stay with the baby. Now this sounds crazy. I know y'all.
Well, she's had a lot of celebrity clients, right?
Right, but the craziest part is, so somebody wants to go to Hawaii, they want to go to Rome, they want to go to Italy, they want to go to Europe, they want to go wherever. So they will fly her with them, and then she has the days free, but then at night she stays with the baby.
Right.
And then the family will, be with them during the day, the kids.
Yeah, Mariah Carey's music tour, right? Concert tour. She
used to do it for Mariah. She traveled with Mariah Carey, right? And she did that. But anyway, but my daughter's real versed in getting babies to sleep and nutrition. But anyway, so she found this formula. She uses European formula.
Tell me about it.
Not American formula. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know the name of it. I just know that she says American formula, baby formula, is no good. So she had my son. They feed their baby this German, I think it's a German formula. Mm-hmm. And it just plumped him right up.
Yeah.
But so she knows what she's talking about. She, it's full of all these nutrients and doesn't have, that's something we didn't talk about. I want to talk about before we close. Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah.
Him being appointed, he finally got through the confirmation. Yep. Hallelujah. One to go, one big one to go, and that is.
Yeah, Cash Patel.
Cash Patel. Cash Money.
Yeah.
Cash Money Patel. No, but anyway, I did not realize all of the crap in our food. Like, the one that really gets me is he was showing what was in a McDonald's hamburger back in the 60s and what's in a McDonald's hamburger today. One of the little bitty old patties. And you just had meat. Basically, you had meat, salt, salt, pepper. That was it. Mm-hmm. Now, there's all kinds of stuff in a McDonald's hamburger patty. Mm-hmm. And no wonder we've got so many messed up kids, ill kids and people, because you're going to react to something. Someone is going to react to something that is in this food.
Yeah.
Let me just, so the baby food, I think a lot of the additives that have been put into the baby food and even the formulas is actually, because it's not the same formula that you and I had or even we gave try. Actually, do you know our kids, our 4 that we have now, never had formula their whole life? Did yours?
Only my youngest, and that was when my wife had a condition she had to take a medicine for that we didn't feel safe about.
Yeah, ours never. She nursed, and then we got. Did you have the old food grinder?
Yeah, we made our own.
Yeah, we had the old food grind where you'd grind all the vegetables, and you grind the meat, and it comes out in this little this stuff.
Yeah, and really, we just kind of went to, first and munching, Cheerios and things like that, and kind of went straight to solid foods off the plate.
Yeah, and it's funny because with that, like she would grind up liver, grind up broccoli, everything, Brussels sprouts, and so now, growing up, my kids have no problem eating liver, Brussels, all the things that normally you hate. They have no problem because they've been eating it since they were babies. It was ground up back then, but they were eating it from the time they were 6 months old.
But even better than just constantly spoon feeding them. Yeah, like you got to open a can of green beans, and let the kid pick them up. They're actually learning dexterity issues, feeding themselves. And
but you're not letting them eat it right out of the can.
No, I mean,
I'm thinking about cutting themselves on the can. That's what I'm thinking about.
You put a little, and you always put just a little bit on there.
Oh yeah,
because kids are learning dexterity by doing this, and then flings all over.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about too. The more food on the walls and on the floor.
But it's we just made it too big of an issue.
Yeah.
And I mean, my daughter went and bought this fancy little, she thought it was kind of the newer version of the Johnny Jump Up, and this thing, it was a bouncy, but it wasn't even that the chair bounced. It's this little platform would kind of give way. And I said, you're just teaching a kid not to trust the floor, So and she's like, my daughter like, yeah, okay, what else you got to criticize? I said, look, I did this wrong. I'm sorry, Amy. I said, can I buy your little Idris a Johnny Jump Up? Hey, knock yourselves out. So this week they got a Johnny Jump Up. Yeah. Hey, listen, my oldest granddaughter, I think she's, she actually began dancing before she could walk. My son says, when she gets old enough, no more Bruno Mars, because she hip-hops, and you would watch her doing all these spinning around moves. She can't even crawl yet. But with the Johnny Jump Up, that's just the little spring thing.
Right, I remember.
Hook it in the doorway.
Yeah, just hook it in the door.
Yeah.
Real simple little thing, and the kids,
And the exercise, dexterity, the coordination.
Yeah. No, those are the greatest things. Yeah. Now they do have the ones, too, that have the stand.
Right.
It's the same, but the cheap one, the simple one is just hook it up to your door jamb, and then let the kid jump in the door.
Yeah.
But no, I think that is because it builds their muscles in their legs. That's some jump, and there's so many things that I'll tell you what it reminds me of, and we'll finish with this. We better finish. We'll keep going. Right. But there was a story that I read about this little girl saw a caterpillar. You might have heard the story where it was in its cocoon, and it was trying to get out of the cocoon, and so it's eating its way out, and it's going through a struggle. And the little girl thought, "Oh, this thing's having to work so hard. Let me help it get out of the cocoon." So she cut the cocoon away from the butterfly, and the thing just lay there and died.
Yep.
And what she didn't understand was that the work it did to fight its way out of the cocoon strengthened all the muscles it would need to be able to fly.
There's a sermon you could preach on that.
Yeah.
There's a reason for hardship.
But it's the truth.
Yes.
That so a moth or a butterfly or caterpillar in a cocoon having to fight its way out of the cocoon is a part of the whole metamorphosis.
Yeah.
And if we shortcut the metamorphosis, we injure and handicap that thing for the rest of their lives. And you're right. It should be a lesson to when we have people that we try to help with welfare, with all of these handouts, all these things that we do, and we don't let them struggle to appreciate or learn how to work through things.
A pastor of mine who helped me through probably one of my toughest trials in life, and I won't get into what it was, but we're sitting there in pastor study, and I am just I don't even know which way it's up. He said, Dave, he says, as Christians, we just have this mindset of we're going to go from where we are now and God's going to take us to the mountaintop. And we somehow think the quickest and most efficient way is a path straight up the mountain. And then we see God taking us through all kinds of diversions, things that look like the hard way, and things that are difficult. And they're all important to getting us to become what we're supposed to be. Most of us wouldn't choose the path that God sends our life through.
No, we're developing those spiritual muscles.
That's the thing. Hardship plays an important role. That's your spiritual point from Dave today. All right.
Well, yip, that's all, folks. And
Yeah.
we will hopefully speak to you next week. We want to thank Dave Arnett again.
Yeah.
Oh, next week we're supposed to have a special guest. Maybe we'll have a couple. I don't know. But right now we do have one. And that is Melissa Myers, who is running for the GOP chair.
Yeah, and the following Saturday is the convention.
Oh.
So we might reschedule a play around, or we might be taking a Saturday off. But I want to be at the convention.
Oh, yeah. I have to be. I'm a delegate this year.
Maybe we do one of our remotes.
We could.
Yeah. We'll check in a couple of times.
Stay tuned.
All right.
Hey, God bless everybody. We'll talk to you later.